the real Canvey Island Monster. This documentary will take a look at the real cryptid and unidentifiable species of creature in line with the giants such as the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot themselves. That is the Canvey Island Monster. It will take a look at the truth behind the beast featured in the Canvey Island Monster Returns, a series of short films by Beyond the Point, and it will delve deep and show you various images and quotations from the time and give you a true insight into an actual horror behind the fun movies. The Canvey Island Monster was found first washed up on Canvey's beaches in November 1953 on the shores. Of course, the Canvey floods came about in January 1953, so being not long after, perhaps some coincidence with, I don't know, maybe creatures being washed up from distant locations due to the strange water patterns. Who knows? Maybe this is to explain from the almost alien being washed on the shores. This specimen was described as being 76 centimetres or originally 2.4 feet long, with a thick reddish brown skin, bulging eyes and gills. It was said as also having hind legs with 5-toed horseshoe-shaped feet that had a concave arch in them. These were suited for two-footed locomotion on land, allegedly. However, there's no forelimbs for balancing, neither arms nor wings. Its remains were soon after created for zoologists who had deemed the investigation needed not to be looked into any further, as it was of no hazard to the public. Whatever it was allegedly a harmless being. However, in 1954, a year later, another specimen was found. It was described as being much similar to the first, but much larger, the size of a small child. It was 120 centimetres, 3.9 foot long, and it weighed as much as 11.3 kilograms. The corpse was deemed to be fresh, for its eyes and nostrils and teeth were studied. However, no real explanation was given at the time as to what it was, nor what happened to the carcass. As the years have gone by, it has been seen that, the specimens may have been a type of anglerfish. You can see this picture here taken by a Canvey character, Reverend Joseph Overs, from a newspaper. That it does indeed look much like an anglerfish or a monkfish. A more plausible explanation would have been that it was also a frogfish. You can see a picture of one of these here too. These walk on leg-like fins and too have bulging eyes and also take on a variety of colours, including the reddish brown aforementioned. If it was an anglerfish, on the other hand, its fins would have been mistaken for feet. In fact, you can clearly see in this image here that it does in fact have what clearly look like fins and very much not so feet. Here is an artist's impression of the Canvey Island Monster, done more recently on the computer. It now clearly shows an exaggerated Canvey Island monster, perhaps only very loosely based on the description of it on Wikipedia, and clearly it does little to take into account the image you can see here in the black and white newspaper cutting. Perhaps it was just made to look a bit more bestial for effect and dramatism. It is actually cryptids, which, like I say, are unidentified new creatures and could sometimes be associated as being paranormal. Then they are said of on Wikipedia as there's only about 60 of them roughly, and that does include all the famous ones, you know, the Loch Ness Monster and Nessie, you know, all the rest. And Canvey Island Monster is actually one of them, so it's actually one of a very few collection of phenomena. So it's Canvey's very own, you know, it's Canvey's very own folklore beast. Now, so in this, going back to the 1954 account, we've got resident Colin Day describing his memory of coming across the carcass as a young boy. Now, this was a comment he posted on canveyisland.org, Canvey Island's community archive, and he said the following: I was there. I was a young lad of 9 at the time, and I noticed a group of peers in the crowd on the beach. Kids were prodding it with their spades. I actually touched it. I thought it was a person at first, and I could only see part of it through the crowd. Its flesh was not fish-like, you know, scales. It was instead a pinkish colour and looked like wobbly human flesh with cellulite, having an orange peel texture. I remember shouting to the other kids, "It's a mermaid," over and over. I have to say, even at 66, my long-term memory is excellent, especially about the day I saw my first mermaid. So, looking on this quotation, we can see that, you know, he really does say that it did seem to be more than the anglerfish-like creature seen in the black and white photo. I mean, he says that, you know, it was human-like, and he even thought it was a person. So, you know, perhaps this draws a compromise between the black and white image and the artist's impression, so and gives a sort of a balance between the two in this account. So I'm just going to read to you now this newspaper cutting from August the 13th, 1954. Fish with feet found on beach. A fish with feet was found on the beach at Canvey on Tuesday by the Reverend Joseph Diovers, who of course took the photograph. He described the fish as being over 4 feet long with staring eyes and a large mouth. Underneath, on its stomach, it had 2 feet, each with 5 toes. It was dead and had apparently been damaged by being washed against the rocks. A peculiar fish was found in almost the same place last year and identified as a pocket or fiddler fish. So it's even been described here as another kind of marine species. To finally add, in 1999, a further investigation was carried out by Fortean journalist Nicholas Warren, and he was unable to locate any of the official records at the Plymouth Marine Biology Association Laboratory or the National Rivers Authority. And it identifies the creature as being a known or unknown specimen, but he was unable to find accounts from locals who believed the creature was an anglerfish. He was able to find these accounts. So, you know, it did seem to fit the bill more so for a marine life form, and it didn't look too extraordinary either. This determination was seconded by Olwyn Wheeler, a former ichthyologist for the Department of Zoology at the British Natural History Museum, who put forward the creature that it was in fact an anglerfish and that the fins were incorrectly described as hind legs, which does appear to be quite obvious in fact in the black and white photograph seen again here. However, in the previous account from Colin Day and the artist's impression too, there is a clash in interpretations. So it will remain a mystery, the Canvey Island Monster, and no one ever really know what it was. So perhaps the floods of 53 did bring a strange surge of water and brought some foreign life species, some foreign marine life from other countries over to Canvey perhaps. Who knows, you know? So please do keep an eye out for the Canvey Island Monster 2. And if you haven't seen Canvey Island Monster 1 already, then please watch that too, which can be found on the YouTube channel Beyond the Point TV. And this is Beyond the Point, revealing the unseen history of South East Essex. So I hope you've enjoyed the video today. Hope it's explained to you the real Canvey Island Monster.